The clock on his desk showed 11:47 p.m. when Alex finally closed his laptop. His eyes burned from staring at the screen for nearly 12 hours straight. The project he'd been working on was supposed to be finished yesterday, but the client kept asking for changes. More colors here, different fonts there. Make the logo bigger, now make it smaller. The usual dance that every freelance designer knows by heart. Alex rubbed his temples and looked around his small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was his. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that barely fit a couch and TV. The bedroom doubled as his office because rent in the city was crazy expensive. His bed sat against one wall while his desk occupied the opposite corner. Not the most professional setup, but it worked. He'd been living here for almost 2 years now. The building was old but decent. Thick walls meant he rarely heard his neighbors, which suited him perfectly. Alex had always been the quiet type. While his college friends went to parties and bars every weekend, he preferred staying in with a good movie or working on personal art projects. Some people called him antisocial, but he just saw it as knowing what he liked. The apartment felt extra quiet tonight. Usually, he could hear Mrs. Johnson upstairs watching her late-night talk shows, or the college students next door playing music. But tonight, nothing. Just the hum of his laptop fan and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Alex stood up and stretched. His back ached from hunching over the computer all day. He should probably eat something, but he was too tired to cook. There were some leftover noodles in the fridge, but even heating them up seemed like too much work. He'd just go to bed and eat properly tomorrow. He was about to change into his pajamas when exhaustion hit him like a wave. The bed looked so inviting. Maybe he could just lie down for a few minutes, still in his jeans and t-shirt, just to rest his eyes. The project was finally done, and he didn't have any calls scheduled for tomorrow morning. A short nap wouldn't hurt. Alex collapsed onto his bed without bothering to move his laptop to the desk. The device sat beside him, still warm from hours of use. The familiar weight of it next to him was oddly comforting. How many nights had he fallen asleep with his laptop nearby? Too many to count. The pillow felt amazing against his head. His muscles began to relax for the first time all day. The stress of dealing with difficult clients slowly melted away. Tomorrow he would send the final files, get paid, and maybe take a day off. When was the last time he'd taken a real break? He couldn't remember. Sleep came faster than expected. One moment he was thinking about his weekend plans, and the next he was drifting off into that peaceful space between awake and dreaming. His breathing slowed and his grip on consciousness loosened. The sound was so faint at first that it didn't register. A soft clicking noise like a key turning in a lock. Alex's brain, deep in sleep mode, filed it away as unimportant. Maybe Mrs. Johnson was coming home late. Maybe someone was walking past in the hallway. Nothing to worry about. But then came the creak of his front door opening. That sound was different. That sound was wrong. Alex's eyes snapped open. For a moment, he couldn't move. His body was still heavy with sleep, but his mind was suddenly crystal clear. Someone was in his apartment. Someone had just opened his front door. His heart started pounding. Who had a key to his place? The landlord, but why would he come by at midnight? Alex had given a spare key to his sister once, but she lived 3 states away. There was literally no one who should be entering his apartment right now. The footsteps were soft but unmistakable. Someone was walking through his living room, moving carefully, trying not to make noise. Alex held his breath and listened. The steps paused near his kitchen, then continued toward his bedroom. Panic started to set in. Should he call the police? His phone was on the desk just a few feet away, but getting to it would mean moving. What if whoever was out there heard him? What if they had a weapon? What if they meant him harm? The footsteps got closer. Alex could see a shadow moving in the hallway outside his bedroom. His door was only halfway closed, leaving a gap that someone could easily see through. He forced himself to lie still, hoping that in the darkness the intruder might think the room was empty. Then he saw her. A woman stepped into view in his doorway. She was about his age, maybe a little younger. Asian features, shoulder-length dark hair, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked completely normal, like someone you might see at a coffee shop or grocery store. But normal people don't break into apartments at midnight. Alex's mind raced. He'd seen her before. She lived in the building just across the hall. He'd passed her in the elevator a few times, maybe nodded hello in the lobby. He didn't know her name, but she seemed nice enough. Quiet, professional looking, always carrying a laptop bag or coffee cup. The kind of neighbor who minded her own business. So why was she standing in his bedroom doorway at nearly midnight? She seemed to be looking around the room, studying the layout. Alex stayed perfectly still, hoping the darkness would hide him. Maybe she would realize she'd made a mistake and leave. Maybe she was sleepwalking. Maybe there was some perfectly logical explanation for this bizarre situation. But then she stepped into his room. The woman moved with purpose, not like someone who was confused or lost. She walked straight to his bed, and before Alex could process what was happening, she climbed up onto the mattress beside him. The movement jolted his laptop, which slid off the bed and hit the floor with a soft thud. The sound seemed incredibly loud in the quiet room. That's when she smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile or an embarrassed oops wrong apartment smile. It was something else entirely. Mischievous, like she knew exactly what she was doing and found the whole situation amusing. Like this was all part of some plan that Alex wasn't aware of. Alex's throat felt dry. His heart was beating so hard he was sure she could hear it. This was definitely not normal neighbor behavior. This was not how midnight apartment visits were supposed to go. He opened his mouth to speak, to ask the obvious questions. Who are you? How did you get in? What do you want? But no words came out. The whole situation was so surreal that his brain couldn't quite catch up with reality. The woman settled herself on his bed like she belonged there. She pulled her legs up, sitting cross-legged beside him, that strange smile never leaving her face. In the dim light from the street lamp outside his window, Alex could see that despite her calm demeanor, there was something else in her eyes, something that looked almost like fear. For what felt like hours but was probably only seconds, Alex and the woman stared at each other in silence. The street light outside cast strange shadows across her face, making her expression hard to read. But that smile remained, like she was enjoying some private joke that Alex wasn't part of. Finally, Alex found his voice. It came out as barely more than a whisper. What are you doing here? The woman tilted her head slightly, like she was considering how to answer. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly calm and normal. No hint of embarrassment or fear that you'd expect from someone who had just broken into a neighbor's apartment. I need your help, she said simply. Alex blinked. Of all the things he'd expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. He sat up slowly, trying to process the situation. His laptop charger was still plugged into the wall, the cord now stretched across the floor where his computer had fallen. Help with what? He asked. And how did you get in here? The woman glanced toward his bedroom window, then back at him. In the better light, Alex could see that her clothes looked hastily put on. Her sweater was slightly wrinkled, and her jeans had that look of being grabbed quickly from a chair or floor. Her hair wasn't messy exactly, but it wasn't styled either, like she'd been asleep and had suddenly needed to get dressed fast. The previous tenant gave me a key, she said. For emergencies. The previous tenant? Alex's confusion was growing by the minute. That was over 2 years ago. You've had a spare key to my apartment for 2 years. She shrugged. I forgot I had it until tonight. Look, I know this seems crazy, but I really do need your help. Something's happening and I can't handle it alone. Alex noticed that despite her calm voice, her hands were shaking slightly, not from cold but from nerves or fear. Whatever had brought her here wasn't just curiosity or some weird neighbor crush. She was genuinely scared of something. What kind of something? He asked. The woman looked toward the window again. Alex followed her gaze and realized that from his bed, you could see the back parking lot and the alley behind the building. It wasn't a view he paid much attention to normally, but now he noticed there were more cars than usual down there, 3 or 4 vehicles parked in spots that were usually empty at night. People have been watching my apartment, she said quietly, for the past week, maybe longer. Different cars, different people, but always someone there. Tonight it got worse. They're not just watching anymore. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean worse? Someone tried my door handle around 10 o'clock. They didn't knock or ring the bell. Just quietly tested if it was unlocked. She paused, wrapping her arms around herself. Then about an hour ago I heard footsteps in the hallway. They stopped right outside my door for a long time. I could see shadows under the door crack. Did you call the police? The woman's laugh was bitter. And tell them what? That I think someone might have touched my door handle? That I saw shadows in a hallway where people live and walk around? They'd think I was paranoid. Alex had to admit she had a point. The police probably wouldn't take that seriously. But still, breaking into someone else's apartment wasn't exactly a normal response to the situation. So you decided to break into my place instead. I needed somewhere safe to watch from. Your bedroom window has the best view of the back exit. If they try to corner me in my apartment, the back stairs are my only way out." She gestured toward the window. "From here, I can see if anyone's waiting for me down there." Alex looked out the window again. The parking lot was well lit by security lights, and you could indeed see the back entrance clearly. If someone was planning an escape route, this would be a smart place to monitor it from. But why not just ask? Why sneak in like this? The woman's smile returned, but this time it looked more sad than mischievous. "Would you have believed me if I'd knocked on your door at midnight and told you this story? Would you have let a neighbor you barely know into your apartment to spy on some cars that might be nothing?" Alex thought about it honestly. If someone had knocked on his door after midnight with this story, he probably would have assumed they were having some kind of mental health crisis. He might have been polite, but he definitely wouldn't have invited them in. "Besides," she continued, "I wasn't planning to wake you up. I thought I could just sit by the window for a few hours and leave before morning. I didn't expect you to be sleeping with your laptop right there on the bed." That explained why she'd seemed so calm when she first came in. She'd probably been hoping to avoid this whole conversation entirely. "So what's your plan now?" Alex asked. The woman was quiet for a moment, looking out the window again. "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought if I could just make it through tonight, maybe they'd move on. Find someone else to bother. But looking at those cars down there..." She trailed off. Alex followed her gaze. The vehicles in the parking lot did look suspicious now that he was paying attention. They were all dark sedans, the kind that looked official but weren't marked as police cars. And they were positioned in a way that would make it hard for someone to leave the building without being seen. "Who are they?" he asked. "I'm not completely sure, but I think it has to do with my old job." "What kind of job?" The woman hesitated. "The kind where you see things you're not supposed to see, and sometimes you have to decide whether to keep quiet about it or do the right thing." Alex felt his stomach drop. "You're talking about some kind of whistleblowing situation." She nodded slowly. "I reported some things that my company was doing illegally. Financial stuff, safety violations, cover-ups. I thought I was protected, but maybe I was wrong." "How wrong?" The woman's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and read a text message. Alex watched her face go pale in the blue light from the screen. "Very wrong," she whispered. The woman stared at her phone screen like it contained her worst nightmare. Alex could see her hands trembling as she read whatever message had just arrived. The blue glow from the phone made her face look ghostly in the dark room. "What does it say?" Alex asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd entered his apartment, Alex saw real fear in her eyes. Not just worry or concern, but the kind of deep, bone-chilling fear that comes when you realize your life might actually be in danger. "It's from someone I trust, someone who's been helping me stay safe." Her voice was barely audible. "They found out where I live. They're coming tonight." Alex felt his heart rate spike. "Who's coming?" "The people I reported, or the people they hired." She stood up from the bed and moved to the window, staying to one side so she wouldn't be visible from below. "I thought I was being protected. I thought there were systems in place to keep people like me safe when we report illegal activities. There are, aren't there? Witness protection and all that?" The woman let out a shaky breath. "That's what I thought too. But it turns out the company I reported has connections everywhere. Government connections, legal connections, the kind of connections that can make protection programs look the other way." Alex joined her at the window, being careful to stay hidden behind the curtain. The parking lot below looked the same. But now those innocent-looking cars seemed much more threatening. He could make out figures sitting in at least two of the vehicles. "What exactly did you report?" he asked. "My company was supposed to be cleaning up contaminated sites, old factories, chemical spills, that sort of thing. But instead of actually cleaning them, they were just moving the contaminated soil to poorer neighborhoods, places where people couldn't afford to fight back or hire lawyers." Alex felt sick. They were poisoning communities to save money? Worse than that, they were getting paid twice. Once by the government to clean up the original sites, and then again by illegal dumping operations who needed somewhere to put their waste. It was a perfect system for them. The rich neighborhoods got clean, the poor neighborhoods got sicker, and the company made millions. "And you had proof of this?" The woman nodded. "Documents, emails, soil test results that showed what was really happening. I copied everything before I reported it. I thought that would keep me safe. I thought if something happened to me, the evidence would still come out. Where's the evidence now? Hidden. Multiple copies in different places. But that doesn't matter if they can get to me before it comes to light. Alex was trying to process all of this information. An hour ago, his biggest worry was whether his client would approve the final logo design. Now he was hiding in his own bedroom from corporate assassins. It felt like something out of a movie, except movies were supposed to be entertaining and this was just terrifying. "Why didn't you leave town?" he asked. "If you knew they were looking for you?" "I tried. 3 months ago, I moved here from across the country. Changed my name, got new ID, everything. I thought I was safe." She gestured toward the window. Obviously, I was wrong. Alex looked out at the cars again. One of the doors opened and a man got out. Even from 4 stories up, Alex could tell he wasn't just some regular person. He moved with purpose, checking the area like someone trained in security or law enforcement. "They're getting ready to move," the woman whispered. "Move to do what?" "I don't know. Maybe just grab me. Maybe worse." She pulled out her phone again and started typing quickly. "I'm telling my contact that they're here. Maybe they can still do something." Alex watched the man below walk toward the building's back entrance. 2 other figures got out of different cars and started moving toward the front entrance. It was clearly coordinated. "How long do we have?" Alex asked. "Not long. Maybe 10 minutes before they figure out which apartment is mine and how to get in." Alex's mind was racing. He'd never been in a situation like this before. The most dangerous thing that had ever happened to him was getting a flat tire on a dark highway. But looking at this woman, seeing her genuine terror, he knew he couldn't just stand by and let whatever was going to happen happen. "What do you need me to do?" he heard himself asking. She looked surprised. "You don't have to do anything. This isn't your problem. You're in my apartment asking for help. That makes it my problem." The woman studied his face for a moment, like she was trying to figure out if he was serious. "You don't even know my name. What is your name?" Lisa Chen." She paused. "Well, that's my new name anyway. I'm Alex. Alex Rodriguez." It felt strange to be doing introductions under these circumstances, but somehow it also felt important. "Now what do you need me to do, Lisa?" Lisa looked out the window again. More figures were moving in the parking lot below. "I need to get out of the building without them seeing me. My car is parked 2 blocks away, but I have to make it there alive." "The back stairs?" "That's what I was thinking, but look." She pointed down at the alley. "They've got someone watching that exit too." Alex studied the layout. The building had 3 exits, front door, back door, and a side door that led to the laundry room. Most residents didn't even know about the side door because it was usually locked from the outside. "What about the side exit?" he suggested. "There's a side exit?" "Through the basement. It comes out next to the dumpsters on the east side of the building." Alex had discovered it by accident when he'd gotten locked out once. "I don't think many people know about it." Lisa's eyes lit up with hope. "Can you show me?" Alex nodded, but then realized something. "Wait, even if you get out of the building, they'll just follow you. Your car is 2 blocks away and they know what you look like." "I know, but I have to try something." Alex thought for a moment. An idea was forming, but it was crazy. The kind of crazy that could get them both in serious trouble. "What if they were following the wrong person?" he said slowly. "What do you mean?" "What if you weren't the one who left the building?" Lisa stared at Alex like he'd just suggested they jump off the roof. "What are you talking about?" Alex moved away from the window and started pacing his small bedroom. The idea was forming more clearly in his mind, but he needed to think it through quickly. They didn't have much time. "They're looking for you, right? But they don't know what you look like up close. They probably just have a description or maybe an old photo." "Probably," Lisa agreed cautiously. "So what if someone else left the building wearing your clothes? Someone who looked similar from a distance?" Lisa's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting.
"You want to be a decoy?"
"Why not? We're about the same height. In the dark wearing your sweater, they might think I'm you long enough for the real you to get out through the side exit." "Alex, that's insane. These people are dangerous. If they catch you pretending to be me, they'll figure out pretty quickly that I'm not you. But by then you'll be long gone." Lisa shook her head. "I can't ask you to do that. You could get hurt. You could get killed." Alex stopped pacing and looked at her seriously. "You're not asking. I'm volunteering. And besides, what's the alternative? Wait here until they break down your door." As if on cue, they heard a sound from the hallway. Footsteps moving slowly and deliberately. Someone was checking doors, probably listening at each one. Lisa grabbed Alex's arm. They're already in the building. Alex felt his heart pounding, but somehow the fear was making him think more clearly, not less. Okay, we need to move fast. Give me your sweater. Alex, I really don't think… Lisa, we don't have time to debate this. Either we try something or we wait here for them to find us. Lisa looked toward the bedroom door, then back at Alex. The footsteps in the hallway were getting closer. She pulled off her sweater and handed it to him. Underneath, she was wearing a simple white t-shirt. Alex pulled the sweater on over his own shirt. It was tight, but it fit well enough. What about your hair? Mine's shorter and darker. Lisa looked around the room quickly and spotted a baseball cap hanging on his desk chair. Wear this. Tuck your hair up under it. Alex put on the cap and tucked his hair out of sight. How do I look? Like a guy wearing my clothes, Lisa said honestly. Good enough for the dark. Now, do you remember how to get to the side exit? Basement level through the laundry room. Right. Take the stairs at the end of this hall, go all the way down. The laundry room is on your left. The exit door is behind the big washing machines. It might be a little stiff, but it opens. Lisa nodded, but she still looked uncertain. What's your plan once you leave the building? Alex had been thinking about that. I'll go out the front door. Walk toward where you said your car is parked. Lead them away from the building. Once I'm far enough away, I'll find somewhere public and safe, like a 24-hour diner or gas station. And then I'll call you and let you know they're following me instead of watching the building. You can come back for anything you need from your apartment. The footsteps in the hallway stopped. They were right outside Alex's door now. Lisa and Alex both froze. They could hear someone trying the door handle very quietly. Just like Lisa had described happening at her apartment. Alex's door was locked, but it was just a standard apartment lock. Nothing that would stop someone who really wanted to get in. We have to go now, Alex whispered. Lisa grabbed a small backpack from the floor where she must have dropped it when she first came in. This has my important documents and some cash. It's all I really need. Alex quietly opened his bedroom window. It led to the fire escape, which connected to the side of the building where the hidden exit was located. You go first, he whispered. Get to the basement and wait by the side door. Give me 2 minutes, then leave. Lisa climbed out onto the fire escape. The metal was cold and slightly wet from the night air. She turned back to Alex. Thank you, she said quietly. I know we barely know each other, but you're probably saving my life. Just promise me you'll be careful out there. I promise. And Alex? When this is all over, I'll find a way to make this right. I'll make sure the truth comes out about what my company was doing. Alex nodded. Go, I'll see you soon. Lisa disappeared down the fire escape. Alex waited, counting slowly in his head. He could still hear someone outside his door now working on the lock with what sounded like professional tools. When he reached 2 minutes, Alex opened his apartment door as quietly as possible. The hallway was empty, but he could see light coming from under Lisa's door across the hall. Someone was definitely in her apartment. Perfect. They were distracted. Alex made his way to the elevator but decided the stairs would be quieter. He walked down 4 flights as quietly as possible, Lisa's sweater feeling strange and tight around his shoulders. The lobby was empty except for the night security guard, who was asleep at his desk as usual. Alex had always thought the building's security was pretty useless, but tonight, he was grateful for it. He pushed open the front door and stepped out into the cool night air. Immediately, he felt eyes on him. The cars in the parking lot were still there, and he could see movement in at least 2 of them. Alex started walking in the direction Lisa had mentioned, toward where her car was supposedly parked. He kept his head down and his hands in his pockets, trying to look like someone who belonged in the neighborhood. Behind him, he heard car doors opening. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it, but he forced himself to keep walking at a normal pace. Running would give away the game immediately. He made it about half a block before he heard the first car engine start up. Then another. They were following him just like he'd hoped. Alex allowed himself a small smile. Phase 1 of the plan was working. Now he just had to stay alive long enough for Phase 2. 6 months later, Alex was sitting in his new apartment when the mail arrived. The place was bigger than his old one, with better security and actual separation between his bedroom and office space. The events from that night had changed more than just his address. The envelope had no return address, just his name written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a postcard showing a small coastal town he'd never heard of. Fishing boats dotted a peaceful harbor, and the sunset painted everything in warm orange and pink colors. He flipped the card over. The message was short. "Thank you for giving me my life back." The truth came out. Justice was served. Alex smiled and set the postcard on his kitchen counter where he could see it. He'd wondered many times over the past 6 months what had happened to Lisa, whether she'd made it somewhere safe, whether the people chasing her had ever given up. That night felt like something from a movie now. He could hardly believe he'd actually done what he did, walking through the dark streets wearing Lisa's clothes, leading dangerous people away from someone who needed help. It wasn't like him at all, or at least it hadn't been like him before. The plan had worked mostly. Alex had led the cars about 6 blocks away from the apartment building before ducking into a 24-hour convenience store. The bright lights and security cameras had made it clear he wasn't Lisa, but by then she'd had enough time to escape through the basement exit. The men who'd been following him weren't happy about being fooled, but they weren't stupid either. They realized quickly that grabbing some random neighbor wouldn't help their situation. They'd questioned Alex for about 10 minutes in the parking lot behind the store, trying to figure out what he knew and where Lisa had gone. Alex had played dumb, claiming he was just a neighbor who'd borrowed some clothes after spilling coffee on himself. It was a weak story, but there wasn't much they could prove. Eventually, they'd let him go with a warning to mind his own business in the future. When Alex finally made it home that morning, Lisa's apartment was empty. She'd taken only what she could carry and disappeared completely. The building manager later told him that she'd broken her lease and forfeited her security deposit, but left no forwarding address. For weeks afterward, Alex had jumped at every unexpected sound. He'd installed better locks on his door and started parking his car in different spots each day. But the men never came back. Whatever Lisa had done, wherever she'd gone, it seemed to have worked. The real change came about 2 months later when Alex started seeing news reports about a major environmental scandal. A company called ToxiClean Solutions was being investigated for illegal dumping practices. The reports mentioned a whistleblower who had provided evidence of systematic poisoning of low-income communities. Alex watched the news coverage with fascination and pride. Lisa had done it. She'd gotten her evidence to the right people, and now the whole story was coming out. Company executives were being arrested. Contaminated sites were being properly cleaned up. Communities that had been poisoned were finally going to get justice. The whistleblower's identity was being kept secret for safety reasons, but Alex knew. He'd played a small part in making sure Lisa survived long enough to see her mission through. The experience had changed him in unexpected ways. Alex found himself taking on more collaborative projects at work, reaching out to other freelancers, even joining a local business networking group. The guy who used to prefer staying home alone was now someone who understood the importance of human connections. He'd also started volunteering with a local organization that helped people report workplace safety violations. Nothing as dramatic as corporate poisoning, but still important. He'd learned that sometimes ordinary people had to step up when systems failed to protect the vulnerable. His sister had noticed the change when she visited for Christmas. "You seem different," she'd said over dinner. More confident, more engaged with the world. Alex had just smiled. He couldn't tell her the real story, but she was right. Helping Lisa escape had shown him that he was capable of more than he'd ever imagined. That when it really mattered, he could be brave. The postcard was the first contact he'd had with Lisa since that night. He was glad to know she was safe and that her fight had been successful. But he was also glad she'd moved on to whatever came next in her life. Alex made himself a cup of coffee and sat down at his computer to work on his latest project. It was a logo design for a nonprofit organization that worked to expose corporate environmental crimes. The client had specifically requested someone who understood the importance of their mission. As he worked, Alex occasionally glanced at the postcard. The peaceful harbor scene reminded him that sometimes the most important journeys were the ones that took you far from where you started. Lisa had traveled from being a scared woman, hiding in his bedroom, to someone living freely in a coastal town where she could watch the sunset over the water. His own journey had been different, but equally significant. From an isolated freelancer who avoided getting involved in other people's problems to someone who understood that we all have a responsibility to help when we can. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. A potential client wanting to discuss a new project. As Alex answered the call, he realized he was looking forward to the challenge of working with someone new. That would have surprised his old self, but it felt natural now. Outside his window, the city continued its daily rhythm. Millions of people living their lives, most of them ordinary folks just trying to get by. But Alex knew now that any one of them might be capable of extraordinary things when the situation called for it. He finished the call and returned to his work, occasionally glancing at the postcard that reminded him that sometimes the best thing you can do is help someone else find their way to safety.